Hello crafty friends, welcome back to the Wow Embossing channel. I am Sasha and I'm bringing you Card Maker's Delight. So today we're going to be making these alcohol ink looking cards, but this is all embossing powder, so let's get into the fun. Okay, so you'll need 300 GSM white cardstock and then a hard bristled brush. The one I've got there is from Tonic Studios, but I'm sure even an old toothbrush will get the job done. So you'll also need your mixed media brush. This is the Seth Apter mixed media brush from Wow Embossing, and then your embossing powders, of course. So today we'll be using some of the newly released trios. For the first card we'll be using Martina's Pastel Gemstones and some gold metallic embossing powder, and then for the second card we're going to be using Ashlee's Party Poppers. So grab your paper and let's start doing some arty things. Start off by kissing your brushes together like so, just to transfer the ink, and this is how you make brush babies. Okay, so anyway, when your brush is now inked up, go ahead and start dabbing on your card in like circlish patches. So your patches need to go from the top corner to the bottom corner, but on opposite ends. And I'm pretty sure this is called a diagonal, but if it's not, don't call me stupid in the comments please. This is my workplace technically. So I know you're probably like unimpressed so far, but let's go on an adventure with this aventurine blue that we're pouring out right now. Full disclosure, I really had to Google what this word means because aventurine, okay, and it turns out it's quartz, it's not an adventure, so I'm sorry about that. And I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but anyway, once you've added your aventurine blue, go ahead and add your lemon amber over there as well, and then you're going to go ahead and heat up both of those embossing powders. The first layer is not very impressive because we're just getting a base layer on, so ink your brush and then do some more dabbing. So you're going to dab on the same patches that you did before, don't go out of those areas, and then add your second layer of the same powders over each other, so the yellow goes on the yellow, the blue goes on the blue, okay, and then heat emboss them as you did before, but you're going to keep that heating tool going, okay, don't turn it off. Okay, so go ahead and focus your heat tool on one small area of your panel for about 5 seconds, 5 seconds ish, and your tool should be about 2 centimeters away from your paper. And what you're going to start to see is like your embossing powders spread out like beautiful spring flowers. This effect just makes me just say wow every single time. I can't believe this is embossing powders. Look at how beautiful this is. Of course you do get like some burning with your paper, but you just have to work really quick. Like I said, 5 seconds, move on to the next, move on to the next area, move on to the next area, and you're just going to create this what is it called, cascade of flowers. That's it, you're going to create a cascade of flowers going upwards. Like, please just look at that. Is that not pretty? Tell me that's not pretty. So you can actually stop here, but some of us were like born team extra, so team extra, go ahead and take your mixed media brush and you're going to add some ink to the edges of your flowers. You're just going to tap it down and it's going to do that funny dance, but just keep adding the ink, and you're going to do that on both edges. So you can even go ahead and add little blobs just for interest. You can just tap once in the area and that will make a blob. So let's talk about how I finished 3 bottles of this mixed media ink just doing these backgrounds. They're so addictive once you get started, so make sure you stock up. So when you're all blobbed out, you're going to add your gold embossing powder and then heat emboss that like you normally would, but then we're going to go back in and do our little trick where we just point it in the area and allow it to melt. But this time you're going to move your tool and your paper around a bit, because this will help prevent it from burning, because now we've got a lot of layers on there, so you don't want to burn your paper once you've come this far. I did burn my cardstock, sorry, not paper. I did burn it a bit, but look at that. That is way too gorgeous to start again. So we're going to put that aside and work on our next background. So ink up your brush just like before, and then we're going to dab just like before as well, but this time we're only going halfway up our page. It's really hard to explain this design, so you're just gonna have to wait and see once we start adding some embossing powders. So once you've dabbed away and you've inked your panel, you're gonna add your embossing powder, but in patches. So for this card we're using the Party Popper Trio, and you're just gonna go ahead and add your pink first and then your blue, and then you're gonna come in with your yellow in those gaps where the other colors didn't fill. So this layer is not going to get much done. You're just making sure that you have your base layer, and once you're happy with how much powder you have on, go ahead and heat emboss that. And once you've heat embossed that, you're going to come in with your ink pad this time, but because we now know where our edges are, we're going to be able to avoid our edges so that we don't have like straight edges. And to fix our edges, once we've inked up that big area, we're going to go ahead and take our mixed media brush, and we're just going to do the little dancing brush again. This way our edges won't be harsh and we can have that nice sort of flowy look that alcohol inks have. So add your embossing powders to your panel. The placement of your embossing panel is your embossing powders is completely up to you. This is why I love techniques like this, because you get creative control. You can either do it the way that I did it, or you can figure out a different way to do it. So once you're done with your first layer of embossing, you're going to go back and we're going to do our little flowering technique, but this time we're going to keep our flowers really close together because we want to really melt and blend our inks together. And just look at that. So this way you can see how close your heat tool needs to be to your panel, and you just go ahead and keep melting those and blending those embossing powders together. And you can see that the pink and the yellow is really not budging, and that's because we don't have enough embossing powder. You really need a nice thick layer of embossing powder for this technique to work. So take your time and add about 2 or 3 layers. Normally 2 layers does it if you've got a really nicely inked up panel, but even if you don't have an inked up panel, you can always go back and add some more embossing powders as you wish. So I've added some more yellow and pink, and I'm going to see if it's moving. And look at that. Look at the way, like, really the embossing powders are doing the hard work, aren't they? We're just like pointing our tool in the direction, just like you would use your alcohol puffer thing. It's the same thing with the heat tool. Just imagine it's an alcohol ink puffer and you're just puffing your alcohol inks, and I just love this effect, guys. So you can work your panel as much as you want. Your paper will not catch on fire, I promise, but your glass mat will get hot, so please be careful. So you can actually stop here, but I really wanted the edges to be dark on one side, so I'm gonna go ahead and ink blend some black ink into that area, and then I'm gonna take my heating tool and just really focus on that edge and blend the black with the other colors there, because the black was really separate and I just wanted it to like sort of meld with the other colors. And then once I'm done with this paper is really warped. You will get warping, and my solution is to add some red line tape and then stick it to some craft card, because craft card is really hard. Well, not really hard, but it's harder than other cards. Okay, so we're definitely almost done now. We're just going to add some of these curly leaves. You can add flowers if you prefer, but I'm going to just add them in this pattern on one side of my card. And then sorry, what's important here is that you need a really good adhesive, because your surface has gone all slippery and glossy, so it's going to be a bit hard to stick things on. I'm also going to add a few of these black gems here and a hug sentiment that I've heat embossed with black embossing powder, and I just love that glow. Guys, I can never get enough of that smooth surface and the glow. I really think you need to try this. Okay, so after you stuck your panel to some craft card, I've got these frames here from Pink Fresh Studio, and I've die cut 5 of them, and I'm just going to layer them over each other like so, and then I'm gonna stick that over my panel, and that's really going to help as well with some of that warping. And then I've got these hug sentiments again that I'm going to layer up, and I'm going to ombre heat emboss with some of our gold embossing powder. Then I'm just going to add these teensy weensy flowers with some little gold balls in the middle, and that's how I finished that card. I also added that long sentiment at the bottom there, and that's to cover up our little burn accident that we had earlier, but I think it ties in nicely with the card. So I hope you like these cards, and what I wanted you to know is that you can actually still stencil and heat emboss over this background even though you've added all those layers of embossing powder. So you can head on over to the Wow Embossing blog to find out how exactly you do that. So guys, did you notice that I didn't use any anti-static powder for any of these cards? That's how amazing Wow Embossing Powders are. So make sure you check out the other videos on the Wow Embossing channel, and see you next time.